Welcome to the Humanized Books channel, when we will bring you mini books based on summaries of other books, preserving their essence but expressed through other perspectives. Today, mini book is 20 money lessons everyone needs to know, inspired by the psychology of money, timeless lessons on wealth, greed, and happiness. Author is Morgan Housel. This mini book breaks down all 20 powerful lessons that explain why money success is more about behavior than information. Let's focus on what comes next. Plug in your headphones and let's get started. Introduction. Money influences nearly every part of life, yet most people never learn how to think about it. We learn math in school, but not behavior. We learn how interest works, but not how emotions, instincts, upbringing, and luck shape financial decisions. Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money argues that financial success is less about information and more about behavior. The smartest person can struggle with money if emotions take over, while ordinary people can build wealth if they remain patient and disciplined. This mini-book captures the heart of Housel's lessons in a simple and practical format. Each topic highlights a timeless idea: the role of luck, the danger of greed, the value of long-term thinking, the unpredictability of markets, and the importance of managing your reactions more than your investments. The goal is not to tell you what to invest in, but to explain how to think, because when your behavior improves, your results follow. These ideas apply to anyone, regardless of age, income, or background. Money affects stress, relationships, choices, and opportunities. Understanding its psychology helps you make decisions that are stable, patient, and aligned with your values. This introduction sets the stage for 20 core lessons that can reshape the way you build, protect, and think about wealth. Topic 1. No one is crazy. People often look at others' financial decisions and think they are irrational. But Morgan Housel reminds us that everyone makes money decisions based on their personal experiences. If someone grew up during inflation, they fear rising prices. If someone's parents lost money in a crash, they avoid investing. If someone saw wealth created in real estate, they think property is the safest bet. What looks like poor judgment from the outside often makes perfect sense when you understand a person's background. The key idea is that money is emotional. We do not make decisions as data-driven machines. We make them as humans shaped by memories, culture, trauma, opportunity, and the time we grew up in. Housel notes that most people's view of money is built from a sample size of one, their own life. And because no two lives are the same, no two financial perspectives will be the same either. This lesson teaches humility. Instead of judging others' choices, recognize that you only understand a small part of their story. It also encourages self-awareness. Some of your own habits may come not from logic, but from past experiences that no longer reflect present reality. When you understand this, you can begin improving your relationship with money by questioning automatic reactions and building a mindset based on principles, not fear or upbringing. Topic 2. Luck and risk. Money stories often highlight success or failure as if they were the direct result of skill or lack of effort. Morgan Housel explains that this is only partly true. Luck and risk shape every financial outcome far more than people want to admit. Bill Gates attended one of the only high schools in the world with a computer in the 1970s. That opportunity shaped his path. At the same time, a talented friend of Gates died young, a reminder that risk can erase potential just as luck can create it. The problem is that we judge people only by the visible result. If someone becomes wealthy, we attribute it to talent. If someone fails, we assume they made bad decisions. But hidden within every outcome is an invisible layer of chance. Understanding this teaches balance. Be careful about copying someone else's strategy, because their path may have relied on luck you cannot duplicate. And be gentle with yourself or others when things go wrong, because risk is always present even in smart decisions. The goal is not to dismiss effort but to stay humble, avoid arrogance, and make choices that acknowledge the role of uncertainty in life. Topic 3. Never enough. There is a point where having more stops improving your life. Yet many people continue chasing wealth without recognizing where enough truly is. Morgan Housel explains that the inability to feel satisfied is one of the most dangerous financial traps. When your expectations rise faster than your accomplishments, you end up feeling behind even when you are doing well. History is full of people who risked everything, not because they needed more, but because they couldn't walk away. Housel illustrates that enough is not about limiting ambition, but about protecting what matters. Without boundaries, greed pushes people into unnecessary risk. They gamble solid foundations for the possibility of something slightly better. This pursuit often ends in disappointment or loss. Knowing what is enough creates stability. It helps you avoid comparing your life to others, which is a battle you can never win. Someone will always have more. But when you define your own threshold for satisfaction, you gain freedom. You make decisions based on long-term security, not impulse or envy. The lesson is simple. Happiness in finance is not determined by how much you have, but by your ability to feel that what you have is sufficient. Recognizing enough turns money from a source of stress into a tool for stability and peace. Topic 4. Confounding. Compounding. Compounding is one of the most powerful forces in finance, yet it is often misunderstood because its effects are slow, quiet, and almost invisible in the early stages. Morgan Housel explains that humans are wired to understand linear growth, not exponential growth. This makes compounding feel ordinary until, suddenly, it becomes extraordinary. The classic example is Warren Buffett. Most people know him as one of the richest investors in history, but many overlook the simple truth behind his fortune: time. He started investing as a child and continued for more than 7 decades. A huge portion of his net worth came after he turned 60. His skill matters, but the length of time he allowed compounding to work matters even more. The lesson is that compounding rewards patience more than brilliance. Small gains, repeated consistently, outperform big gains that come and go. Many people interrupt compounding by chasing fast results, switching strategies, or reacting emotionally to market swings. In doing so, they sacrifice the one advantage almost anyone can have: time in the market. Understanding compounding shifts your focus from quick wins to long-term behavior. You stop asking how to get rich fast and start asking how to stay invested long enough for compounding to work its magic. The key is not timing, but endurance. Topic 5. Getting wealthy versus sesh. Staying wealthy, building wealth, and keeping wealth are two different skills. Morgan Housel explains that getting wealthy often requires optimism, risk-taking, bold decisions, and a willingness to push forward when others hesitate. Staying wealthy, however, requires almost the opposite: humility, caution, and a deep respect for luck and uncertainty. Many people can achieve financial success once. Very few maintain it for decades. Why? Because the mindset that helps you rise is not always the mindset that helps you preserve what you've built. Getting wealthy may require taking calculated risks, but staying wealthy requires avoiding unnecessary ones. It means recognizing that no matter how skilled you are, risk, randomness, and market cycles can overturn success quickly. Housel highlights the value of survival. Long-term wealth isn't about hitting the biggest return. It's about avoiding ruin. Reasonable beats rational becomes an essential idea. Rational strategies may push for maximum gain, but reasonable strategies focus on durability, flexibility, and staying in the game. This topic teaches that the ultimate financial skill is endurance. Wealth lasts when you appreciate volatility, protect yourself from downsides, hold a margin of safety, and accept that past success does not guarantee future safety. The real goal is not to become rich once, but to stay secure for a lifetime. Topic 6. Tails, you win. In many areas of life, and especially in investing, a small number of events drive the majority of outcomes. Morgan Housel explains that financial success often comes from a handful of rare, unpredictable moments, what he calls tails. These tail events shape markets, companies, careers, and fortunes far more than average days ever will. For example, a few of the best-performing companies in the stock market are responsible for most of the market's long-term gains. Many of the greatest inventions, business decisions, or investment results come from a single breakthrough that more than compensates for years of ordinary progress. This pattern exists everywhere. A few big wins carry the weight of many small failures. The mistake people make is assuming outcomes should be evenly distributed. When a portfolio has several mediocre investments but one superstar, they may feel disappointed in the losers rather than grateful for the winner. But this is how progress happens. The presence of a few extreme winners is not a flaw. It is the normal shape of success. Understanding this helps you stay patient. It reminds you that setbacks and small failures are not evidence of poor strategy. They are the entry fee for the rare moments that truly matter. You don't need everything to go right. You just need the right things to go very right once in a while. Accepting the power of tails makes you more resilient, more realistic, and less tempted to judge success too early. Topic 7. Freedom. Morgan Housel argues that the highest form of wealth is not luxury, but the ability to control your time. Money becomes most meaningful when it gives you freedom. The freedom to choose how you spend your day, who you spend it with, and what goals you pursue. This form of wealth is quiet and personal. It does not always look impressive from the outside, but it creates deep satisfaction from the inside. In modern life, many people chase status, possessions, or comparisons. But these pursuits often add obligations, not freedom. A bigger house may require more maintenance. A demanding job may offer high income but little time. Wealth is useful only when it increases your ability to make independent choices. Freedom also protects happiness. When your schedule is controlled by others, stress rises. When you have enough savings to walk away from toxic situations, you gain emotional security. When you design a lifestyle with buffers, less debt, more savings, more flexibility, you protect yourself from unexpected problems. Housel emphasizes that real wealth is the gap between what you have and what you need. The wider this gap, the more freedom you have to live life on your terms. Freedom is not about impressing others. It is about gaining control over your own time, energy, and peace of mind. Topic 8. Man in the Car Paradox. The man in the car paradox is Morgan Housel's reminder that things we buy to impress others rarely create the admiration we imagine. When you see someone driving a luxury car, you don't think, "What a wonderful person." You think, "If I had that car, people would admire me." In other words, the admiration is directed toward yourself, not toward the actual driver. This creates a strange illusion. People buy expensive things hoping to gain respect, yet observers rarely attribute status to the owner. They simply project their own desires. The person in the car gets far less attention than the buyer imagines. This paradox highlights how easily we misunderstand the relationship between money and respect. True admiration rarely comes from displays of wealth. It comes from character, kindness, confidence, and generosity, qualities money alone cannot buy. Understanding this helps you escape a costly trap. When you stop expecting possessions to change how people view you, you make better financial decisions. You spend more on what genuinely improves your life and less on things meant to signal status. The paradox frees you from chasing approval and helps you focus on building real relationships and a life based on values, not image. Topic 9. Wealth is what you don't see. Most people judge wealth by what they can observe: big houses, luxury cars, designer clothing, or expensive vacations. Morgan Housel argues that this is a misleading picture. Real wealth is the money you don't spend, the savings, investments, and financial security hidden from public view. Wealth is quiet. Spending is loud. The difficulty is that people often look at someone with impressive possessions and assume they are financially successful. But external displays say nothing about financial stability. Many high-income earners spend almost everything they make, leaving little margin for emergencies or long-term freedom. Meanwhile, someone living a modest lifestyle may be quietly building a strong financial foundation. Housel emphasizes that the purpose of money is to give you options and independence, not attention. The more money you save and invest, the more control you gain over your future. But because savings are invisible, people feel less motivated to celebrate them. Society rewards consumption, not restraint. Understanding this shifts your mindset. You feel less pressure to signal success and more motivation to build lasting stability. Wealth becomes a personal game, not a public performance. By valuing what's unseen, the buffer in your bank account, the investments that grow silently over time, you protect your long-term freedom and reduce financial anxiety. Real wealth is not about applause. It is about security and peace of mind. Topic 10. Save money. Saving money is one of the simplest yet most powerful financial skills, but it often gets overlooked because it feels too basic. Morgan Housel explains that wealth is created not just by investing well, but by having money available to invest in the first place. Saving is the foundation of every other financial decision, giving you flexibility, resilience, and opportunity. The key insight is that saving is not just about frugality, it is about independence. When you save consistently, you reduce your dependence on unpredictable income, job stability, or market conditions. Savings buy you time during emergencies, space to make better decisions, and the confidence to take calculated risks without fear of losing everything. Housel also stresses that saving does not require high income. What matters more is the gap between income and expenses. Many people assume they cannot save because they do not earn enough. But the real challenge is often lifestyle inflation, raising expenses to match every increase in income. Savings also protect you from the emotions that lead to bad financial choices. When you have a buffer, you are less likely to panic during downturns or chase risky opportunities. The lesson is simple. Saving money is an act of optimism. It is a belief that your future is worth preparing for. And the habit of saving consistently will almost always matter more than how cleverly you invest. Topic 11. Reasonable, rational. Morgan Housel explains that while financial theory often rewards perfect rationality, real people do not live perfectly rational lives. Instead of trying to optimize every decision mathematically, it is far more sustainable to make choices that feel reasonable for your personality, values, and emotional comfort. A strategy that is rational on paper but impossible to stick with in real life is not truly effective. For example, the optimal investment strategy might involve enduring extreme volatility if it promises the highest long-term returns. But if that volatility keeps you awake at night or triggers panic selling, it is not the right strategy for you. A slightly less efficient plan that you can follow for decades is better than a perfect plan you abandon after a stressful month. Housel's point is that humans are emotional. We have families, anxieties, fears, goals, and unique backgrounds. Expecting yourself to behave like a flawless calculator is unrealistic. Financial success depends on behaviors you can maintain consistently, not theories that assume you never feel stress. This lesson encourages self-awareness. Understand your tolerance for risk, your need for security, and your long-term temperament. When you choose reasonable strategies that match who you are, you increase the odds of success because you eliminate the emotional friction that derails so many financial plans. Topic 12. Surprise. Morgan Housel explains that the biggest financial lessons often come from events nobody saw coming. Markets, economies, and personal situations are shaped by surprises, sometimes wonderful, sometimes devastating. The problem is that people tend to base decisions on what has happened before, assuming the future will follow familiar patterns. But history is filled with shocks that break every rule people thought was stable. Surprises feel rare, yet they are actually common. Wars, recessions, bubbles, technological shifts, pandemics, and political changes have reshaped society again and again. The world is always changing, and much of that change is unpredictable. The lesson is not to predict surprises, but to prepare for the reality that they will happen. This requires humility. Your financial plan should never rely on everything going right. It should assume that unexpected events will interrupt your expectations. Whether it's a sudden expense, a job loss, or a market crash, resilience comes from accepting uncertainty rather than trying to eliminate it. Housel emphasizes that the most dangerous financial stories are the ones you've never heard, because they haven't happened yet. Instead of denying uncertainty, build flexibility into your life. Expect twists. Leave room for adaptation. When you prepare for surprise, you are less likely to be overwhelmed by it. Topic 13. Room for error. Morgan Housel argues that the most important part of any financial plan is not the return you hope for, but the buffer you build to protect yourself when things go wrong. Room for error means accepting that the future is uncertain and designing your decisions so that unexpected events don't destroy your long-term plans. You don't build a plan assuming perfect conditions. You build one that can withstand trouble. This safety margin can take many forms: extra savings, lower debt, conservative forecasts, diversified investments, or simply living below your means. These choices may look overly cautious to others, but they dramatically increase your chances of long-term survival. Wealth grows only when you avoid catastrophic losses. Housel emphasizes that plans fail not because people are unintelligent, but because reality rarely behaves like a spreadsheet. Life brings surprises. Jobs disappear, markets drop, emergencies happen. If your plan requires everything to go right, it is not a plan. It is a hope. Room for error gives you flexibility. It lets you stay calm when things go wrong and helps you avoid panic decisions during stressful moments. It is the financial equivalent of breathing space. When you build margins into your life, you gain confidence, patience, and the ability to stay invested for the long run, qualities that matter far more than perfect accuracy. Topic 14. You'll change. One of Morgan Housel's most powerful lessons is that your future self will not want all the same things your current self wants. People change. Their goals, tastes, fears, opportunities, and definitions of success evolve over time. The problem is that many financial decisions are made as if preferences will stay the same forever. A young person might believe they will always enjoy risk, only to discover later that stability matters more. Someone might commit to an expensive lifestyle because it feels right today, but regret the cost when life circumstances shift. Long-term commitments made with short-term emotions can create tension years later. Housel argues that understanding your own capacity for change is essential in financial planning. Instead of locking yourself into rigid goals, focus on flexibility. Build systems that allow room to adjust your lifestyle, career, or investment strategy as your values evolve. It's impossible to predict exactly who you will become, but you can assume you'll grow, learn, and shift. This lesson encourages humility. Avoid saying, "I'll never change," or "I will always want this." Accept that your future self may surprise you. Good financial planning honors that possibility by creating space for new priorities. The goal is not perfect foresight, but resilience. A plan that supports you even as your life transforms. Topic 15. Nothing's free. Morgan Housel explains that everything in finance has a price, but the cost is not always obvious. Instead of paying with dollars up front, we often pay through volatility, uncertainty, stress, or patience. The biggest mistake investors make is expecting rewards without accepting the emotional cost required to earn them. For example, the stock market offers higher long-term returns than safer options because it demands tolerance for short-term losses. That volatility is the fee, not a penalty. Many people treat downturns as a failure of the system, when in reality, they are the price of admission. If the ride were calm, the reward would be small. This lesson applies beyond investing. Building a business requires long hours, risk, and emotional strain. Saving money requires discipline and delayed gratification. Financial freedom requires the willingness to say no to certain comforts today. When you accept that everything has a cost, you stop searching for shortcuts. You recognize that the discomfort you feel, whether uncertainty, fear, or waiting, is part of the process, not a signal something is wrong. Housel teaches that financial success becomes easier when you know the price of progress and are willing to pay it. Those who refuse to pay the emotional fee often get stuck chasing quick wins or abandoning good strategies too soon. But those who accept the cost gain access to outcomes that others only dream about. Topic 16. You and Me. Morgan Housel explains that people make financial decisions that look strange only when we forget that everyone is playing a different game. One investor may be saving for retirement 30 years away. Another may be trying to buy a house in 2 years. Someone else might be trading for entertainment, not long-term wealth. These players are all interacting in the same market, but they follow different rules, goals, and time horizons. The problem arises when you copy someone who is playing a different game than you. A long-term investor gets scared because short-term traders panic. Someone trying to build wealth slowly feels pressured by people taking big risks for quick gains. When you compare your path to others without understanding their goals, you end up confused and emotional. Housel emphasizes that clarity comes from knowing which game you are playing. Your financial decisions should match your timeline, your responsibilities, and your emotional comfort, not someone else's. This lesson encourages perspective. You stop judging others' choices because you realize they're working with different priorities, and you stop letting outside noise influence your strategy. The market becomes less stressful when you remember that not every movement, headline, or trend is meant for your game. When you stay grounded in your own purpose, your decisions become calmer, more consistent, and far more effective. Topic 17. The seduction of pessimism. Morgan Housel explains that pessimism sounds smarter and more convincing than optimism, especially when it comes to money. Bad news grabs our attention because it feels urgent and threatening. Good news feels slow and quiet. This creates a bias where people expect things to go wrong more often than they actually do. Financial pessimism is persuasive because loss hurts more than gain feels good. A market crash, a recession, or a bad investment experience leaves a stronger emotional mark than years of steady growth. The media reinforces this by highlighting crises, risks, and failures. As a result, people often overlook the long-term trend that markets, societies, and economies tend to improve over time. Progress is real, but gradual. Pessimism also seduces us because it feels cautious and safe. When someone warns about danger, they appear wise. When someone talks about opportunity, they appear naive. But history shows that long-term progress has been the rule, and setbacks have been temporary. Understanding this helps you stay balanced. It reminds you not to overreact to downturns or let fear drive your decisions. Optimism is not the belief that nothing will go wrong. It is the confidence that you can endure setbacks and continue moving forward. Financial success favors those who remain patient even when pessimism feels louder. Topic 18. When you'll believe anything. Morgan Housel explains that people are most vulnerable to believing unrealistic financial stories when they feel emotional pressure, especially fear, excitement, or the desire to catch up. When emotions run high, logic takes a back seat. This is why bubbles form, scams succeed, and unrealistic promises attract crowds. People don't fall for bad ideas because they're unintelligent. They fall for them because they're human. Money touches deep emotional needs, security, status, belonging, and hope. When someone offers a story that promises to solve those needs quickly, it becomes easy to suspend skepticism. In a booming market, people believe prices will rise forever. In a crisis, people believe everything will collapse. Emotion creates a lens that turns the improbable into the believable. Housel also highlights that narratives gain power when they spread socially. If everyone around you is talking about a can't-miss opportunity, it becomes difficult to question it. Humans are wired to follow crowds, especially when uncertain. This lesson is not about judging others. It is about recognizing your own susceptibility. Anyone can be swept up in a convincing story at the wrong moment. The solution is to create systems, habits, and rules that protect you from your emotional impulses. Stick to principles that keep you grounded, especially when the world feels unstable. Good decisions rarely come from emotional extremes. Topic 19. Altogether. Now, Morgan Housel uses this chapter to tie the major lessons of the book into a unified philosophy of financial behavior. He explains that while the stories and examples may seem different, they share a common pattern. True financial success comes from humility, patience, flexibility, and emotional control. It is less about intelligence and more about behavior. Across the earlier chapters, several themes repeat. People have unique experiences, so their financial decisions differ. Luck and risk shape every outcome. Long-term wealth requires endurance, not brilliance. Compounding rewards those who stay invested. Freedom comes from living below your means. Room for error protects you from surprises. Emotional decision-making is the greatest threat to financial stability. When you see these ideas together, the message becomes clear. Money is not a math problem. It is a behavioral challenge. Your success depends on managing your expectations, your reactions, and your relationship with uncertainty. Housel encourages readers to build financial habits that last. Save consistently. Avoid comparing yourself to others. Plan for unpredictability. Choose strategies you can stick with for decades. Focus on independence, not status. This chapter serves as a reminder that financial wisdom is simple in theory, but requires emotional awareness to practice. When you combine the core lessons, you gain a stable philosophy that can guide your decisions in any market, at any stage of life. Topic 20. Confessions. In the final chapter, Morgan Housel admits something essential. Even financial writers and experts do not follow perfectly rational systems. Everyone is influenced by their personal history, emotions, fears, and experiences. His own financial approach is shaped far less by spreadsheets and far more by the environment he grew up in, the lessons he learned early, and the risks he feels comfortable taking today. This honesty reinforces the core message of the book. There is no single correct way to manage money. People do what makes sense to them based on their background, beliefs, and goals. What looks irrational from the outside may be perfectly reasonable when you understand someone's personal story. Housel shares that he values independence and safety more than maximum returns. He prefers strategies that allow him to sleep well, stay calm during volatility, and avoid stress. These choices might not be the optimal path for everyone, but they align with his psychology. That alignment is what matters most. The chapter encourages readers to examine their own beliefs and design a financial life that suits who they are, not who others expect them to be. Your financial plan should reflect your values, your tolerance for risk, and your definition of a good life. The confession is simple but powerful. Even experts are human. And once you accept your own humanity, you can build a financial strategy that is realistic, sustainable, and emotionally healthy. Outro. The lessons in this mini-book show that money is not about perfect calculations or flawless predictions. It is about understanding yourself, your emotions, your values, your fears, and your long-term aspirations. The most important financial decisions are shaped by behavior, not intelligence. By recognizing the role of luck, respecting risk, saving consistently, building room for error, avoiding comparisons, and designing a strategy you can actually stick with, you create a financial life that is stable, flexible, and personally meaningful. Morgan Housel's philosophy reminds us that wealth is not a competition. It is a tool for independence, security, and living a life aligned with what matters most. When you stop chasing what others have and start focusing on what you need, money becomes simpler and far less stressful. Carry these insights forward, let them guide your choices. And remember, the way you behave with money will always matter more than the numbers themselves. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy our summary based on inspiration to do something great in our life. I look forward to see you in next mini books. Don't forget to subscribe and like. This helps us reach more people, and comments are always welcome. All the best.